decided we were going to go down to pull down Galax, Virginia.
Run transmission gears up. I'd go to a junkyard, worked on tracks.
Hey, thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit about when we were going to pulls back in the day, hauling Prostock up and down the coast. We would go to Pennsylvania, Delaware, of course in Maryland, and now Virginia and North Carolina, and wherever we could find a pull that would have us. Sometimes the things that happened on the way to the pull were just as interesting as things that happened at the pull. Of course, it was always a little bit of a challenge to get to the pulls. If I couldn't catch a ride with anybody else with a long tractor trailer rig, piggyback on with them, and I was trying to nurse along this old 1960s cab over Ford tilt back that we had, and old red truck. It was worn out. The gear shift lever was, and when it was in gear, you could move the gear shift lever this much, and I'm not exaggerating. When it's in gear, there's just so much linkage, and everything was so worn in that cab over. And whenever we go to the pulls, we would say a good prayer before we left, and almost every mile we'd do the same thing. We would stop at every third gas station, fill it with oil, and check the gas. That's what that's how bad the engine was. And but it would 90% of the time get us where we were going.
Here I am working on the truck at one of the pulls. Got the cab tilted forward. I think that's over Delaware.
But we would haul 10,000 pound Prostock on it. Sometimes they would pull in the 12,000 pound class too, so that we'd be hauling 12,000 pounds on that old thing, up and down the road. And remember one time we were at Buck, and we were a few hours from getting, not a few hours, a few miles from getting to the Buck, and it started missing and backfiring up through the carburetor, making all kinds of noise. I didn't try to haul the tractor home, but we just left it there. And Kevin Windsor and I went up with his truck the next day and picked it up and brought it home. And shoot, all it was one of the push rods that come out of being engaged with the rocker arm, and it wasn't opening up the exhaust valve. So I should have just tried to fix it there, but it sounded like it might be a head gasket issue or something while we were there. But anyhow, we always had a lot of adventures getting to the pulls. My wife would go along with me to a lot of them, and I'm sure she really enjoyed riding to pulls in that crazy cab over Ford.
Well, here we are somewhere in the Virginia mountains trying to figure out how to get back on the highway. It was an unidentified individual trekking over to McDonald's to get some breakfast. Sorry, invading on your privacy or whatever. 84 Humble. Many of the interesting sights you would see along the highway.
It seemed like the good Lord was always looking out for us. We would go away to these pulls and something would break on the truck, and it was an old truck. Like when we went to pull North Carolina State Fair down at Raleigh. I was going around the Beltway around there, and my clutch pedal stopped disengaging the clutch. It just went to the floor, and no way to shift with the clutch. I had to shift without the clutch. And then, so well, I'll go as far as I can. I mean, I'm on the Beltway here. So I was just shifting, using using the gas pedal and the engine RPM to shift when I needed, when I could. And we ended up, made it into town, went as far as I could into town. And when I finally made it, as far as you could possibly go, well, what I would do is I'd come to a red light, I would turn it off, cut it off, coast to a stop, put it in neutral, coast to a stop, put it in granny gear, and I found I could start it in granny gear and start it moving, and I could just shift, you know, without the clutch. But I finally got into this one place where the roads were situated just so that I couldn't get any farther. I was not able to do that. And there was a little parking area over here, very small, very crowded. Pulled over there, stopped, and I said, what the heck am I going to do? And I looked over to my right, and there was a little mom and pop parts store, auto parts store. I said, well, I don't think that's going to help me out at all. Let me figure out what's wrong first. Turned out it was a slave cylinder down underneath there for the clutch. So I took the darn thing off, went in there, told him what I had, and this old guy leaning on the counter stared at me with a blank look on his face. He said, hold on. He walked on back into the back room there, and heard him shuffling around, mumbling to himself, throwing stuff on the floor, and tripped over a couple things, and he come out there with a box that had about an 1/8 inch of dust on it. We blew it off, and we opened the box up and set the thing down there, and dog, if he didn't have the slave cylinder for that old truck, now what are the chances that that could have happened? You know, it ain't a coincidence. I mean, the good Lord was looking out for us. He would do stuff like that for us all the time. He was watching out for us. And so, I mean, it was only like $15 or something, $18. So I paid the man, went over there, put the thing on, bled it, got my clutch working, and went on the way to the fairgrounds to the pool. Another time we were at a pool, and a bearing, when it was a Sunday afternoon pool down in Virginia, a bearing, hanger bearing went out on the rollback. And how in the world am I going to fix that? And got a ride with somebody 2 miles up the road. There was a little store open. Just happened to be open, have Sunday hours that afternoon, and went in there and they had the hanger bearing. So I went back and put it in. It's just unbelievable. It seemed like the good Lord was always looking out for us that way. Anyhow. But it's amazing that old truck could haul that tractor to so many pools. At that time, we were doing pretty good at the pools and running against some pretty tough tractors. And one time we got it in our heads to go to Galax, Virginia. I had made some changes. Kevin Windsor and I would sometimes go to pools together. He had a Ford Prostock, a baby blue at that time, and we would sometimes travel together. We decided we were going to go down to a pool down in Galax, Virginia, and check out our tractors just to see how the changes that we had made, have affected them or whatnot. Went down to Galax, Virginia, and ran with some pretty good national tractors from the Midwest, Ohio and out there. They were from the national circuit. I guess it was the first pull in the spring. I guess they wanted to try out their tractors too, and we all went down there and ended up, I was just running the Prostock. Back then the Prostocks were not what they are now. Running against, in the Superstock class, running against guys with 3 or 4 turbos and 30-inch tires, and I ended up getting 5th and 6th out of 14, 15 tractors, something like that, which I was amazed. Found out if I'd have gone 3 more feet, I'd have had 2nd in one of the classes. That's all that separated us. The guy that won, he was He had an exceptional run. He was out pretty far. I think it was Bobby Bess that had won that time. He had a 10.66, and sometimes when he got hooked up, he could really roll. And he was out there 10, 15 feet from the pack. But if I'd gone 36 more inches, I'd have been second, which I thought was pretty darn good with what I was pulling with. So we came back home excited, and went up to Buck, Pennsylvania, and I ended up getting third up there. It was called the Mason-Dixon Challenge. They had guys from below the Mason-Dixon line in the class. Were pulling against the guys from the Yankees up there in Pennsylvania. I got second right behind Coleman Wheatley, and I think guys that pulled up there almost every week had a distinct advantage. The Stoffers and one of their Deutzes, that they had a nice smooth run. I was the first puller in the class, and stuck with my first pull. And the Deutz was this last puller in the class, and they ended up going up the left side line and sneaking it by us. But it was a good time. It was a good pull anyway, and we really enjoyed that. I was feeling pretty good about how the tractor was. Knew there was still some changes to be made, but I could pull it and not have to work on it after every pull, so I was just going to let it go. I didn't have time to work on it anyway. It was funny back then. I could have either afforded a pulling tractor or something to haul it on. I couldn't afford both, because that was before we got buckshot. When I was pulling the Spirit of Deer Power, I couldn't afford something to haul it on. I had to borrow a truck to haul the thing around, or beg a ride with somebody else on a trailer. But that's why we were hauling with this old cab over. I could not afford a decent hauler and a tractor. The only reason I could afford a tractor because I did all my own work, all the pump work, turbo work, injector work, everything, changes that was made to the pistons and everything. I did all the machine work, ported the head, built the manifolds, everything, And the pump I was running was this old Mack truck pump and Mack injectors, and
Even make my own transmission gears up. I'd go to a junkyard, worked on tractor trailers, and bring home bushel baskets full of gears out there junkyard. Come home and start counting teeth and the distances between the shaft and find the right ratio to get the right gearing for it. Still got the pile of gears back here. I still use some of them. Got some of them in 4010s I put together, and you'd be surprised. You got a bunch of gears like that, you can make your own ratio. Just weld them onto the shafts in the transmission. Hardest part is getting the right teeth and the right distance between the gears. Sometimes I'd have to grind the gears down, but I would do it. Do what you got to do, right?
it was back then when you could, somebody with some mechanical ability could make the guys with the money look stupid, and that was fun. So anyway, we had a good time back then. We had a good time.
If you have your hashtag sub, hashtag ticket, get this box over here. We're going to draw this out here in a few minutes. So please check, have your hashtag ticket there. Bring it to the announcer stand right away. Please. All right, here we go. Bill Dine. David and Bill Bell are bringing the RPMs up. We're ready to get it underway. Big break the RPMs up. the bus out over in the lane. And the bus got done later. A good round right there, boy. Wilson Schultz going.
And Buckshot bringing the RPMs up. He's ready to go. He's looking much better this time. Got a good run underway. Okay, Kevin Windsor, maybe he's going to drop one gear, see if he can keep the engine RPMs up. Yeah, he might be in the lowest gear he has.
Maybe he don't have a gear to drop, so
High difference, it all should work out in the end.
we'll find out.
Good looking binder, I'll tell you. 1466 out of Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Look, K-Man. John Deere, and that will be Alfred Wild. North and the South battle. I'll tell you what, the South is kind of looking pretty good here again so far in this class. Coleman Wheatley, the Delaware Ether Eater. Good run, going, I'll tell you. Three in there all from south of the border. And so's this guy, Alfred Wild, the Super Tiger. Look at this run. Either involved, Alfred.
You know, I believe he went three. That Jimmy is the best, but he is one of the strongest Prostockers out of Maryland.
Do we got any?
Be the acid test.
You bet. Do we got any big red international fans here tonight? You think the international can put the John Deere down? You know, we got John Deere #1. Let's see what the big binder can do. I'll tell you, keep an eye on him. The distance to beat. 2, 8, 2, and 8. He got it screaming, I'll tell you.
Oh, boy, tough break. He missed it. Yep, not sure they are capable of getting a lot done back here in a short period of time. But right now, green light, green flag, Cotton Tame in the big binder. What is he, baby? West Coast?
He's right there, I'll tell you. Tank to the world famous Buck Motorsports sled. Okay, building the boost for turbochargers. Rich Lustig, the Super Stealer.
This must be Tommy Wilkinson, because Anthony's running a case. Now, we'll get into all that later. Big binder, a Tom Bear, Tommy Wilkinson.
Oh, with the best of them, I'll tell you. Anthony Wells.
Trying to get his fixed up, and now he turns the loose.
Ouch. Do we get a full-off tractor? Okay, the distance for the case of Anthony Wells. 100 feet even. 100 feet even. Okay, easy does it. John Wynn, 20-pound Maryland. The distance to the 2, 8, 2, 8, 5, 2, 1, one of the major pulls. He can be tough. It's a brand new engine, a new setup for these guys this year. So, you know, anything can happen, but I'll tell you what, they usually got their act together. First hour, underdog!
Jeffersonville, Maryland, ready to go. John Deere time as he gets ready to bring her off the line. And I got a feeling this is another one of our Prostock tractors. One Charger. Whoa! There's the, hey, let's go bulldozer now. As the Prostock all down the line. And hey, this little John Deere's got a good ride. He's now close to 250. 245 it looks like, close to it. Super run. Let's hear it for him. A good run. Boy, I tell you, beating a lot of tractors with a lot more horsepower, running only 24 inch tires on the little John Deere. Prostock.